Let's get all sorted. I'm James.
And I'm Jeff. Today we look at LEGO's long and often troubled history of making toys for girls. Hey, James.
Hey, Jeff.
So, this is a big topic we're talking about here.
It's a huge topic.
Yeah, this affects, I know I don't want to get this wrong, it's approximately half the world.
Yeah, about
Yeah,
that. A little
so,
over, isn't it?
A little over statistically, yes, which is due to weird birth rates and also men killing each other. Yeah, so this should be fun.
Yeah.
There's a lot to cover
Well,
here.
it's where do you start and where do you stop, right?
Yeah.
It just goes and goes and goes. You
It
must have
does.
had a hard time pulling back on the research from this one.
This started out as, this would have been like a 3-hour podcast if everything I could have put in, we put in, and we just can't.
All right, well, let's get
because
started.
there's a lot of stuff, though, you should definitely head on over to breakingdads.com and check out all the links to all this, because there's a lot, and it's fun. So let's get started. Let's go.
Begin at the beginning.
Hey, James, come back in time with me for a little bit.
Do-do-do-do-do-do-do.
Let's go to a
No, that was
magical
Batman.
place.
Wait, I need a time machine sound.
That was Batman.
Whoa, 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 whoa. There we go.
Thank you, good doctor. Yes, if you go to pre-1970 Lego, and back then they made a toy for girls. It was called Lego,
Yeah.
and nobody cared. It wasn't a big deal.
Yeah.
They made their sets, and if you look at, we talked about the marketing on our last podcast. If you go in and look, they had boys in the pictures and they had girls in the pictures, and they were both playing Lego because Lego was the toy that they made, and kids played with toys.
And that's progressive because you think that's an era of easy bake ovens and BB guns.
Yeah, that's true. It would be an interesting thing. But at the same time, I'm sure if you saw an ad for wooden blocks, they weren't like, no, these are boys' wooden blocks.
Well, they were all in the shape of guns. So
Yes. So it was progressive, but it was also at the same time the way the world was, and life was good. But then in the 70s, they started to think, hey, maybe girls don't want to build houses and cars. Maybe they want to build houses, but play with the kitchen inside the house.
Oh no.
So they, between 1971 and 1974, plus oddly enough, one set in America in 1981, they had what they called the Homemaker line, which was really dolls' furniture. Right? So they were competing with doll houses. They're like, hey, the girls like to build houses out of the Lego, and then we can give them the furnishing that they can put inside that to better play house. So that's fun. And you can see that it was definitely aimed towards girls, because all the product shots, all the advertising for it just had girls in it. There was no
Right.
boys in it. However, they were still a little progressive in that a lot of the doll sets had a pamphlet in it to parents, and it read, you may have seen this on the internet, but I'll read it for those that haven't. To parents, the urge to create is equally strong in all children, boys and girls. It's the imagination that counts, not skill. You build whatever comes to your head the way you want it. A bed or a truck, a dollhouse or a spaceship. A lot of boys like dollhouses. They're more human than spaceships. A lot of girls prefer spaceships. They're more exciting than dollhouses. The most important thing is to put the right material in their hands and let them create whatever appeals to them.
Yeah, and that as true then as it is now.
Yes, it is. It is true. But at the same time, it's, I guess, sort of shows the way the world was back then, that they had to put the letter in.
Right.
So that people didn't freak out and go, you can't play with that. That's for girls.
That's a girl toy. That's a boy toy. Yeah.
Exactly.
Although, you know what? I think that is still, you still see this kind of attitude sometimes where, people will be looking, when they see a boy playing with something, they look a bit like, is that, like, should I let my boy play with that?
Toys R Us just did
wonky.
What are those called? Flyer, where they reversed all the pictures, and they had girls playing with the guns and they had boys playing with the dolls, and people went crazy.
See, what world do we live in?
It's a weird thing, and it's because I'm like, we've talked about this on our Breaking Dads podcast. Like, I was fine with my kids playing with pink balls and dolls and everything like that. I played with Barbies when I was growing up. It didn't affect me, other than I had fun when I played with the toys.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a color and it's bright.
Exactly. Yeah, and you do play differently with dolls than you do with guns, oddly enough.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing that.
Yeah, weird, huh? It's one of those sentences I never thought I'd say.
You don't get your little gun and cook it a meal and put it into bed and
No.
with the other guns. It's
Or plan the date the gun's about to go on. It doesn't. It doesn't
no,
often
it doesn't.
happen.
Tends to lead in one direction.
Yeah, but it's weird. And if you go into a toy store, it is definitely there's a girls' aisle, and then the rest of it is all for boys.
So yeah, as I say, I don't think it's
Yeah.
interesting. Is this letter could almost be? It's almost something you would see today. Sadly,
Well, sadly, but at the same time, you wish that Lego would just reprint this and put it in the sets now,
right?
because
Or for a time have put it in their head office to remind themselves
that would
of
have been
this.
nice too.
Because
Yeah.
man, it
Yeah,
seems to go
so
sideways.
so even when they were making things just for girls back in the 70s, and they were definitely geared towards girls, they still had an idea that, hey, this is a toy, you play with it for fun, and kids should play with toys, and it doesn't matter what toy they play with.
Right.
As long as they're playing.
It's imagination.
They're doing it right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But at some time, soon after they stopped putting these letters in sets, they decided that girls needed girly things to build. So in 1979, they introduced a customizable jewelry line, Scala.
One of the weirdest missteps. When you look at it, it doesn't even look like a Lego product.
Well, it kind of does if you like Lego, because you're like, hey, those are 2x2 Lego plates
Yeah.
that they've stuck on a bracelet and or a
Yes.
pendant.
They're really the Lego logo is oddly and curiously very small.
It's on
the-
these ones.
Yeah.
It's on these ones. It's there. And it's still Lego, kind of. But it was a really small line and obviously did not sell because they only released 2 different bracelets, 2 different pendants, 2 different bracelet pendant sets, which you'll recognize from their individual ones, 2 rings, and I think probably the most terrible of all of them, 1 mirror/picture frame. So you can decorate the thing that you look at yourself with, I guess.
Lego narcissism.
Yeah. And yeah, all the play in it was just, like, say, swapping out 2x2 tiles with different colors and art on them. That sounds...
I guess it's like Lego watches now, but
I suppose.
I get. You know what's funny is I think there's this maybe a disconnect between this kind of Scandinavian sensibility and North American markets sometimes, where it's like the idea is like, hey, let's make something modular and fun, and girls like jewelry, and let's
Yeah.
give them this thing, and they're not anticipating maybe the reaction. Or that they're just the way people play is different.
Well, and this was 1979 when this came out, so
Yeah,
the
that's
reaction was more sort of, that's a terrible product,
It's meh.
more than that was offensive to anyone.
Right. Yeah,
Yes.
that's true. Yeah.
There was not like a media
That is
firestorm.
not girly enough. I am sorry, Lego. You've got
Yeah.
to step your girl up.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there should be more pink there, Lego.
Yeah.
Let's go. We can't get more pink on the box. People weren't offended with them. In retrospect, I am, just because it was a terrible product more than anything.
That's true more than anything. Yeah.
So after Scala fizzled out, Lego went back to business as usual, and they remembered that Lego is a toy for both girls and boys. Until it wasn't, anyway. See, during this time, they started to go more for the story selling, where conflict was the key in the sets. So the city line became about cops and robbers and firefighters fighting fires set by, I'm assuming, bad arsonists. And then you had your space line, which had different aliens fighting the human space guys, and you had your pirate line, which was pirates versus the Imperials, and during all this time, they were selling more and more of these sets to boys, and they were selling well, so they started designing more and more sets to appeal to these boys, so they'd sell more to boys, and they'd repeat until Lego realized that girls are buying less and less Lego.
And also grandparents and people
Yeah.
for birthday parties are just not buying these sets for girls.
That's right.
You look at it and you go, oh, should I buy the Space Death Ray set? I mean, girls will play with it. Mm-hmm. Lots of girls probably liked it, but it's not the thing you're necessarily going to buy for your granddaughter or your,
Yeah.
it just doesn't have quite the same appeal.
Yeah, and I think another thing that happened was the rise of the massive toy stores in this era as
Right.
well. Because previous to that, you'd go into a department store and they would have
Toys.
one aisle of toys.
Not
right?
the genderized
Yeah,
sections.
so Lego would be right near Barbie because maybe they had 2 shelves, maybe,
Yeah.
back in the day. Then you get these massive Toys R Us's that have to fill a ton of space.
The Lego aisle.
And they have
the Barbie aisle.
Exactly. The girl aisle, really.
Yeah, it is.
Because it tended to get
Here's the
girls'
kitchen.
toys got
Here's the
smaller and smaller.
Barbie.
Exactly. So that's interesting to me that sort of happened. But I think Lego realized that, hey, we need something to offer girls. So in 1992, they introduced Paradesia.
Paradesia.
This is it's an interesting idea. It ran from 92 to 97, so I'd say you'd call that reasonably successful. And it was basically based on a vacation resort. So it allowed them to use a lot of pinks and pastel greens. I don't know if it was a calculated attempt to appeal to girls or if they did a vacation line and appealed to girls because they had this color palette and these ideas. I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah.
Until you look at the advertising.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, when you look at the design of it, I wasn't sure, and it didn't seem too offensive.
No, they look like fun sets covering. It was more like an offshoot of town or city.
Yeah.
Right, where you're like, oh, that's where the people that live in the city go on vacation. Right.
Yeah, it all strikes me as a little weird, but
yeah,
and like you said, until you watch the ad.
Until you watch the ad, which we have a link to on BreakingDads.com, and it's hey girls, here's girly girl stuff for girls to play with girls with in a girly way. I guess I'm assuming that's the pitch that the advertising agency used to land that one.
I think so. They just scented the room with flowers.
And it's weird if you look at it as well. Like one thing is the builds were relatively simple compared to other sets released in the same time period. Right, so they're a bit easier to build, bigger parts, easier to put together. If you look at the male to female minifigure ratio, it's one of the better ones for having more female minifigures, and the jobs are doing too. The roles in those sets,
they're not just serving.
Well, yeah, the men tend to be the waiters and the lifeguard, right, and the female figures are they're just hanging out, having vacation, having a good time.
It goes both ways, though. Women aren't capable of having jobs, Jeff.
That's right.
You know, you can't win with this stuff.
No. But again, nobody was. I don't think people were up in arms in the '90s about this set.
No.
And the idea that Lego was trying to capture a market, they were losing.
They weren't explicit about which third world country they were exploiting during these Paradesia holidays.
No, that's true. It's true. Yeah.
So it's all good.
I hadn't thought of that side of it.
Just goes dark.
But they did. One thing I think they really hit on here is that that girls really like horses.
Yes.
Because there is an amazing amount of horses in this line.
Just Lego, Google Lego horse. There must be
going to come up.
100 billion pages would come up.
Yeah. So that's fun. So that's an idea I think that they hold on to for the rest of their life, Lego.
Yeah.
So they've gone from jewelry to Paradesia, but I think they were feeling that Paradesia wasn't quite girly enough. So in 1994, Lego introduces the Bellevue line.
Belleville.
Thank you if I say it right. Bellevue would be the hospital I would like to go to if this was the only toy available to me. So this one had an amazing run. They started in 94 and it ran till 2008.
And this, as I was thinking before, is this just they needed to recoup their tooling costs on this? Like, you really question, was this successful?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it was successful because as late as 2010, you could still purchase some of the last remaining stock from the Lego website. So that's not a good sign.
They were just like, we got to use these molds and try to make money back.
Yeah, because there was a lot of new molds because the figures in it were larger, more articulated dolls. So it was sort of like not quite G.I. Joe sized, but sort of halfway, I'd say, between G.I. Joe and a traditional Lego minifigure. So they were big and they looked weird. And there's a picture of a catalog that came out in 94 where they introduced this line on our website as well. And it's weird because it has both the Paradesia minifigure on a horse looking up at this giant minifigure sitting on a bench. And it's just a weird, like, it's compatible with Lego. It looked almost like a Lego knockoff more than it did Lego. And it was really weird. And there's barely any building in this at all. Just giant walls that look like waffles. I guess you could call them. I have no idea. It was
quasi-
like, here's the idea of a wall that you can place
Yeah,
here.
exactly.
We need something to hold up the idea of a roof. And yeah, so you would, I don't even know if you'd play with them in that way.
Is this the one where there's the set with the girl or woman or whatever
Yeah.
it is standing amidst the rubble that she imagines as a built set?
Yeah, it was weird. That's
a
weird.
weird one.
That's the packaging. That's the product
yeah.
packaging. And that's, it's like,
It's like there's been an earthquake, and now I'm going to imagine rebuilding my home.
hey kids, here's a bunch of parts, but with your imagination and also the fact that these large pieces can really only be configured in one way, it could look like this.
In minutes.
Yes. So that's fun. I think, in fact, the whole Belleville, there, I got it right this time, experience can be summed up as Princess Homemaker.
Yeah.
Because it starts with very homemakery sets with babies and baby animals and horses. You got to make a home for those horses. And it moves over to a princess, a fairy tale line they do at the end.
So what is this? I'm trying to think of this time period of what, like, were they having, they were trying to run up against Barbie? Or some of the knockoffs of that time period?
Yeah, I think because Mattel was the largest toy company in the world. And the part of the reason for that, though, I think, is if you went into Toys R Us in the mid '90s and you went into the girl aisle, because again, most of the toy store was dedicated to boys' toys.
Yeah.
You go in there and it was dominated by Barbie.
Right.
So if you have a girl and they want a toy, they're probably gonna get a Barbie.
So is this, I'm wondering if they were trying to be a bit more progressive than Barbie? Were they hoping that this was going to be a nicer, kind of less gendered option?
I think it
Or-
goes back to
I
their
don't know.
dollhouse roots, and they're like, this
Yeah.
is a dollhouse-sized minifigure for dollhouses, and we'll make cheap plastic dollhouses that have lots of furnishings for the girls to play dolls with. And it didn't work, obviously.
I would love to hear the Lego designers talk about their ideas of what market they were trying to hit sometimes with these, because it's hard to
It does-
sometimes deconstruct where they must have been coming from.
You look at this product, and you can tell it's a bunch of men in a room trying to design something from them. And it seems like
It
to
seems
me.
like
I mean,
it, but-
we're making assumptions.
But again, yeah, it's 94, so who
Yeah.
knows?
Yeah. So obviously by 97 they realized that even that wasn't girly enough. So in 1997 they introduced the Scala dolls.
Right.
Now this
Let's double
is
down on
Lego.
it.
This is Lego trying to do Barbie.
Oh.
So these are large fashion dolls around almost exactly the same size as Barbie dolls, shockingly. And they have outfits that you can change, and you have hair that you can brush. Isn't that
I think they thought
thing?
if we hadn't made a terrible mistake already, let's make one now. These are dreadful.
Yeah, well, also I'm sure they were looking at their sales going, that didn't work.
Yeah, like the clothing accessory sets.
Yeah.
And all the weird.
Well,
it just doesn't even look. It's weird.
Yeah, because you've got sets that have more fabric than plastic
Yeah.
by Lego. And
Yeah,
that's,
and again, I guess it's hard to knock it for what they were probably running up against sales wise, and looking at that time period, they were probably slumping and going, "Oh man,
Yeah.
we need to
if we can just
diversify."
get 2% of the Barbie market,
Yeah.
that's huge dollars that they needed at that time.
Because 97 to 2001 was probably some dark years.
It was not the best time
Yeah.
for Lego, for
And
sure.
This probably didn't help.
I would imagine, because now, again, you're still paying for the Belleville tooling process.
And the Scala.
And now you got the Scala dolls.
Yeah.
I'm hoping they paid off Scala from 1979 at this point.
I don't know that they would have.
But I do like the idea that somebody thought, hey, we had a girls' line in 1979. Let's reuse that name. I'm sure that there's some goodwill in the market from that line.
Somebody had a good memory about it.
Yeah, and again, so if possible, there was even less building with the Scala Dolls line than there was with the Belleville line. So at this point, they're not even pretending to be a construction company for girls. It's just, here's some dolls. And now it did have the It's for Girls trinity of horses, cute animals, and babies.
Right.
So they're like, hey, if Paradisia taught us anything, girls like horses.
There's a whiteboard in a Lego marketing room, and they had that's what they had. They literally
Girls
have
like
a
horses.
horse, animal, and a baby, and just a line drawn around. It's like
Yeah.
this big recycling symbol. Circle of life right here, guys.
Somebody put a check mark beside that.
Yeah.
Done. Walked out. Dropped the whiteboard marker. I'm sure that actually sounds. It would
Plausible.
be fascinating if there was
Plausible.
video from that time. It would just be phenomenal. So, shockingly, that did not help out Lego's financial troubles in the early 2000s. I know, right? And now they start to get desperate if they weren't before, because they're like, hey, half of the population of Earth still isn't buying our products. And so they go, hey, remember we did that jewelry line? So I feel like this is proof that even a previously terrible idea can become worse.
Like Lego kicked themselves when they were down.
They really did. And they're like, hey, we'll do a jewelry line and we'll call it Clickets.
Why not?
Because, and this is fantastic, it's called Clickets, but it really should have been called You Like Beating, right? So it's weird. It was a jewelry line with almost zero Lego compatibility. There was some in there, but you wouldn't even think to try because the Lego branding barely appears on the packaging. So
Did they think that maybe part of their financial problems was related to the Lego? They just thought, let's just jettison the Lego part of what we do, because it doesn't seem to be working.
yeah, I think. Well, I feel like there was a thought towards that because they were, as we talked about in the knockoffs episode, they were losing some market share.
Yeah.
And the patents had expired, and they were losing lawsuits. So I think there was a thought in the 2000s of, hey, we need to branch out.
Let's get into restaurants and maternity wear. Why
Yeah.
not? Let's just choose some other unrelated things. Would have been as plausible as this.
Probably would have been better than this jewelry line, which ran from 03 to 06. And I have no more words.
No,
I can't even talk about this anymore. Let's move on.
All right.
Let's pretend that, like most Lego fans do, let's pretend that just never happened.
So, like the horse with the broken leg.
Yes. We've taken it out back. So Belleville, though, was still running, right? And it went all the way to 2001, and Paradisia was still going and went all the way to, Belleville went to 08. That's right. So after that was finally phased out, when it stopped selling, they realized that they didn't know what they were doing when it came to making toys for girls. They looked back on their, what do we got here, 30-year history of attempting to make things for girls, and they realized, we're terrible at it. Hey, let's do some research. And they needed to, because by 2011, 90% of Lego sales were to boys.
That's bonkers.
Yeah. And we're talking, millions, hundreds of millions of dollars in sales just to boys, basically.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's crazy. And since they didn't want to make another terrible mistake, they spend the 4 years researching what girls wanted, how they play. And they found out some things. And there's going to be some shockers here for you, I'm sure. Boys and girls play differently.
What?
I know, right?
No.
You have a son and a daughter. They do exactly the same thing all the
Absolutely.
time, do they not?
Yeah, they're just like weird clones.
Yes. Sometimes you look at them and you go, which one are you?
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. So they found that when boys build a construction set, they'll build the castle and then they'll play with it on the outside. People are attacking the castle, breaking the castle, getting into the castle. When girls build construction sets, they tend to play on the inside.
I can affirm this.
Yeah.
Yeah, my daughter has a open up castle-y thing, and it's all about the inside set and the stories and the narrative, and she'll lay out the tiny little bits of stuff. And whereas my son will build it, look at it briefly, and walk away and go do something else.
Exactly.
He has no interest in the
I have
the narrative.
finished playing with this toy. Whereas girls look at it as I have started to play with this toy.
And it's hard to scale that out to all girls and all boys. Like it is difficult, but I think market research would at least play out some of the you can see propensity.
Exactly.
Whether that's
And
innate
honestly,
or socialized, who knows? But that's
for the girls that would build it and walk away, they already have their toys for that.
Right.
The rest of the Lego line does that. They found that girls love the little details, right? So they needed to have more detailed figures. The minifigure wasn't doing it for them. They needed more accessories and more furnishings and finishings inside the set.
right. Yeah.
Right. And they wanted a brighter color palette. None of this they're not
green,
Lego
blue.
Batman who
Yeah.
only works in black and sometimes really, really dark gray. So, but at the same time, yes, they learned that girls wanted a brighter color palette. They also knew that they couldn't just make pink, and because that would be a terrible mistake. Again, they've tried that.
Yeah, a bit too. It would just seem like a pathetic attempt at pandering to girls.
Exactly.
And yeah, in that time period, a misstep.
Girls wanted more role-playing opportunities, and they wanted a storyline that they would find interesting, based more around relationships than conflict.
And so their conclusion leads them to
So they launched Lego Friends in 2012, and they launch it with a $40 million promotional push.
Wow.
So they put their money where their money is,
yeah,
which is a good place to put
yeah,
money.
that's good.
And it came out, and you can imagine after doing all this research and finding out exactly what girls wanted, that it would be met with an extreme amount of controversy. Because the world looked at it and said, oh no, you're not doing that. How dare you market to girls in this way? And it was swift. There was a change.org petition that within the first month, they got 36,000 people to sign it. And the basic premise was, stop selling out our girls. So they wanted it to not be overtly girly, to be marketed towards girls. There was complaints that Lego was reinforcing gender stereotypes because there was a beauty shop and a veterinarian and stables. However, people tend to gloss over the fact there was also a float plane and an invention workshop and a skateboard set.
Yeah, my daughter has the little inventor girl.
Yeah.
She loved making inventory things, and it was, she played it out next to a pizza shop, next to a stable.
Yeah,
It's all there. She's like, whatever. This is all stuff going on in my town.
exactly. So, people felt that the builds were dumbed down, which has been a thing that Lego has done in the past
Yeah.
with their sets for sure.
Yeah.
A valid complaint on those other ones. Lego counters that argument with this one, saying that the entire Friends line, the initial run, was designed for girls between ages 5 and 6. So if you're comparing these ones to other sets designed for kids aged 5 to 6, they're at a comparable difficulty level. It's
think-
when you compare it to sets designed for 12-year-olds
Yeah.
that you get in trouble.
And another aspect is that if they've identified that, girls want to be more involved with the play with the set and the inside of the set and not about the build itself.
Yeah.
They're going to make the build quicker and easier because they know girls want to get to the imaginative play component as opposed to spending all of the time on the mechanical build.
Yeah.
So, they're trying to really, they're playing to their audience.
Yep.
They're not trying to just say, hey, and this is the difficult part of any design nowadays, I think, is the internet is swift and full of blustery opinion, but
Yeah.
the opinions go both ways. And it's a problem now, I feel like,
Well,
in all product manufacturing. And
But it's definitely become more of a problem when you're marketing to girls than boys, because they
Right.
talk about the fact that it reinforced gender stereotypes.
my God, look at the rest of it.
Yeah, look at the
Turn it around.
the Pirates line. Look at the Castle line. Look at the even the Town line.
Yeah.
The City line is full of boy wish fulfillment.
What is your, and
Yeah.
not my boy, like what is, it's crazy. My daughter wants to be a fireman.
Right. Yes.
Not my son.
Yes.
He does not want to be a fireman or a cop or a construction worker or a,
But they're still stuck in these old-fashioned
Absolutely.
gender roles.
and they're not even like striving gender. Not to say that it's not a big deal, but they don't have there's not the civil engineer line in the
Yeah.
same way. Like they emphasize.
or why there's no fashion design studio in the City line for boys that want to
Exactly.
design fashion.
But they are going with things that are good for play, which is vehicles, planes,
Yep.
things that are fun both as a toy and a thing you build.
Exactly,
And so
yeah.
Lego's caught in a weird thing of being forced to get involved in the conversation about gender identity and social change and things like that.
when they're just trying to make money.
Yeah, they're saying we want to make a toy that you build and then you play with it.
Yeah.
And
Based on what consumers have told us they want.
that's a lot of limitations in a way.
Yeah.
So in a way, they've been kind of pushed into this corner. Whereas instead of saying, hey, we're going to make a kid, a boy line where, there's some really long, elaborate, he's a web developer.
Yes.
And it's not a fun set to make. So you're going to make, he pours concrete. Why
yeah,
not?
exactly.
But-
Because you're building something else.
But we could just as easily, as you say, level these complaints against the boys line
Yeah.
or the kind of boy aimed line.
Yes. Although, again, Lego would like to clarify that the rest of their line is not a boys' line.
Well-
It's just that they've been making things that boys like.
And I think my kids played this out. I mean, that my daughter the other day, they wanted to they were playing with Minecraft stuff.
Yep.
My daughter was in there playing. She wants to do more imaginative play with it, but she really wanted to be in there. And she also wanted a while ago for her birthday a purple rocket ship,
Yep.
which doesn't exist.
Does not exist, yes.
And so she was really like, no, I want it like an astronaut set, but I want it in purple. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I could go and get the sets and assemble this beautiful thing, because there's a photo you found of one of them that it's gorgeous.
Yeah.
It looks awesome.
It is a phenomenal.
She would love it.
Yes.
But-
and then you look at the 5 sets you'd have to buy
Yeah.
to make it, and you're like, oh, that's cost prohibitive. At the same time, I think if Heart Lake City, where Lego Friends takes place, all of a sudden had a space exploration set, that would sell like crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe it will.
I think the Lego movie line was a step in the right direction in a way.
Yeah.
In terms,
Because the movie appealed to both boys and girls,
yeah.
young and old. And they had a lot of different sets at a lot of different price points for a lot of different experience level of building.
Yeah.
So I agree. Yeah, I think it sort of is one of the reasons they had a good year in 2014.
And it wasn't trying to tell a specific boy-girl story. It was just trying to tell a story, and then boys and girls could get involved in that story,
Yes.
which I think was maybe the way Lego needs to be thinking, instead of targeting their product in one direction or the other.
That being said, by targeting their product in one direction or another,
How's it done?
they've done extremely well. In fact, the sales have started to overshadow the controversy. When it debuted in 2012, it did double the sales expectations they had for it, which
Wow.
I imagine when you're putting $40 million into marketing, you have.
So maybe the controversy actually helped their marketing efforts of $40 million in the first place.
It may have. There's the whole, all press is good press
Yeah.
part of it. I think Lego tried to respond well. I think they also knew there was going to be controversy, and they tried to
They're
get
not gonna
out
escape it.
ahead of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there were statements being released before the questions were even being asked. In 2012, the year it came out, Friends became the 4th best-selling Lego theme, behind only Star Wars, Ninjago, and City, and selling more than the superhero line that year. So that's pretty good.
So all that time that girls weren't playing with the Lego because it hadn't been aimed at them.
Yeah.
Now the floodgates opened.
And boy, did they, because they went from having less than 10% of their customers to being girls to having over 27% of their customers being girls in 2012.
Wow.
That's a pretty good increase, and this is not losing sales. They're buying this set over this other set like you would traditionally get when you release a new theme. This is people that hadn't bought Lego before buying it.
Wow.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
So I guess you gotta ask, were they really just giving the consumers what they wanted? Are the gender biases a reflection of the world as it exists today, and maybe we shouldn't ask a for-profit toy company to try to come in and fix this?
Yeah, I don't know. It is hard. I think, it seems to be, it seems to work. My daughter has friend sets.
Yep.
She loves them.
Yep.
She does play with them, but then she mixes it in with all of the other stuff.
Yes.
So for her, it's a starting point, but it's not, I think she finds it a little limiting in some
Yeah.
ways. So
But I guess the upside is that there are all those other sets out there.
Yeah.
And maybe for some of these girls, getting a Lego friend set is something where they go, okay, that's pretty cool. I'll build that. Hey, I like this. As opposed to, I don't like anything they have for offer. I might like building stuff, but I'm not sure, and I won't find out.
yeah.
So, I guess it could be the gateway in, hopefully, maybe.
And I guess it depends if the girls have older boy siblings as well.
Yeah.
So that has an effect. That's part of it, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because then you've got the other sets already there.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
she sees those and goes, I like those. I like those colors.
Yes.
I like those weird things on it.
Yes.
I want to crush stuff.
And really, I mean, we've got some links to a beautiful spaceship, a mech, and a lunar rover.
The mech. I love that.
That's pretty awesome, isn't
Yeah,
it?
I want to build that.
Yeah. Yeah, and so, it that's the nice thing about the Lego Friends line is it is Lego. Yes, the mini dolls look different than minifigures, but they can stand beside the minifigures. This is not like the Belleville towering over minifigures. The hair pieces are interchangeable, which, as someone who does some Lego minifigure customization, I love the new hairstyles so very much.
Yeah.
So
See, is the sales really about the girls, or is it about adult builders going, oh my gosh, we can finally get fuchsia pieces?
there's definitely a part of that.
I'm going to buy 20 of these sets.
But adult builders only account for about 5 to 10% of Lego sales every year, whereas going from 10% girl sales to 27% of your customers being
that's
girls,
true. That's
that
normal.
is a much bigger piece of the action. So, and the fallout from all this controversy has helped Lego make some actual changes to their product offering,
Right.
Including a big one is just adding more female minifigures
Exactly.
into the other themes.
Yeah.
The new space theme that we looked at has one of the astronauts is a female. One of the scientists at NASA, which they don't call NASA because they didn't license it,
Right.
is a female scientist.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think that that's a really simple change
So easy.
to make to address the concerns of your user base.
Yeah.
Is
Absolutely.
Don't make the variety of offering huge and have boys in the friend set, have women in all the other sets.
Yep.
It's open for play for everyone.
And they've definitely done that.
Yeah.
The Friends set is by far the most diverse set they have because they have girls in it. They have boys in it.
And they also
now.
have ethnic diversity.
Yes,
which is a
ton of
huge
it.
thing.
Yes.
Which is great. Yeah.
Yeah, which is weird though for Lego because the whole idea in the past was they're just yellow.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
It is true.
So that's fun. But like we say, at the end of the day, whether it's Friends, whether it's Pirate, it's Lego.
Yep.
Just build whatever you want.
Tell a
Right?
story, don't tell a story. Make
Exactly.
a pile of rubble.
Make something and then throw it on the ground so it smashes, or make something and keep it forever in pristine condition.
Yeah.
It's your toy, and it's a toy. So just do what you want with it.
And it's interesting, just it gives people a perspective on how companies have to deal with all of their consumers. It's a really, I think consumers have a lot more sympathy to Lego than they might to some of the other toy
sure.
manufacturers.
Yeah.
But even still, it shows the reaction. It just shows how people have felt about toys in general.
Yeah.
And that if there's this much vitriol going towards Lego on some of this stuff, you can imagine the overall feeling people have towards all toys.
Yeah, I think part of it is that people have such an emotional connection to toys, right?
Yeah.
And I think that the Lego Friends line, you look at the sales, it's here to stay. And personally, I was a little unsure about it when it was first announced, and when it first came out, I didn't know what to think of it. And I thought it was maybe pandering a little bit and wasn't the best it could be. But at the end of the day, I think that there's going to be a huge new generation of Lego lovers that will look back on the Lego Friends line with that same nostalgia and fanaticism as current Lego maniacs look back on classic Space and Pirate. I think for some people, this is going to be the line that brought them into Lego, and I think the world will be a better place for it.
I think when your purple mech robot saves your stable of many, 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 many horses, it's all gonna be good, and the babies are safe, and everything's good.
Yep, I think that's. I think I'm gonna go home and build a purple mech and save some horses
I
with
love it. I want to see it.
Okay,
Oh, all right. You've been Jeff.
and you're still James.
I'm still James, and check you out at Still Sorting.
That's right.
And if you wanted to check any of the images or videos we talked about here, breakingdads.com.
Yep.
Leave us a message. Let us know what you think.
And definitely, if you've got a moment, pop on iTunes and rate us up so other people can find us. And be kind.
Be kind, please.
Be kind.
Please be kind. All right. We'll see you next week.